Right. Good evening. This is a special and regular meeting of the Hollister City Council on April 15th, 2024. Meeting is now called to order. It is 5:30 p.m. City Clerk, could you please call roll?
Councilmember Perez,
Present.
Vice Mayor Resendez,
Here.
Councilmember Morales, Councilmember Burns,
Here.
Mayor Casey.
Here.
I'd also like to report that the agenda for the special and regular meeting of April 15th, 2024 was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on April 12th, 2024 at 3:30 p.m. for Government Code Section 54954.2. Thank you.
Great. City Clerk, are there any public comments for closed session items?
There are no public comments for any of the closed session items.
All right. City Attorney, could you announce the closed session?
Yes, Mayor. Item 1, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency designated representative, City Manager David Maroney, and Administrative Services Director Casey Astorga. Employee organizations, Service Employees International Union, SEIU Local 521, Hollister Firefighters Union, HFFU Local 3395, Hollister Peace Officer Association, HPOA, and unrepresented employees and classifications designated as executive management. 2, closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, name of case, City of Hollister v. Civic Allendale LLC, case number CU 2400015.
All right. Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn to closed session? All those in favor?
Yes.
All right. Motion carries. Uh-oh. They're frustrated. Are you doing I'm ready. There we go. All right, we're going to convene a regular meeting of the Hollister City Council. Meeting is now called to order. It is 6:35. Councilmember Morales, could you lead us in the pledge? City Attorney, do we have any reportable action from closed session?
Nothing to report, Mayor and Council.
Great. We're going to start with our special orders of the day. We have a proclamation declaring May as Poppy Month and May 24th as National Poppy Day. Anybody here receiving them? Is the American Legion coming down to receive the proclamation? Who was going to come? They can all come.
So declaring May as Poppy Month and May 24th as a National Poppy Day. Whereas poppies are worn and displayed as a symbolic tribute to our fallen and the future of living veterans and service members. And whereas at the end of World War I, the American Legion family adopted the poppy as a symbol of freedom and the blood sacrificed by troopers in war times. And whereas the use of the poppy symbolically comes from the poem In Flanders Fields, which movingly begins, "In Flanders fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row," referring to the poppies that sprang up in the churned earth of battlefields across Belgium and France where soldiers died fighting. And whereas the American Legion family has long utilized the red poppy as its official flower symbolizing the bloodshed by those who have served in our U.S. military. And it is fitting that the American Legion and the American Legion Auxiliary approach their 100th anniversaries. They expand the meaning and symbolism of the poppy, mirroring the manner in which the poppy is symbolically showcased in England and Canada, and in celebratory fashion on the Remembrance Day, also known as Armistice Day and Poppy Day. And whereas wearing a poppy will unite citizens from across the country who decide to show their patriotism. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you so much. Appreciate you. Would you like to say a few words?
On behalf of all the veterans, I'm sure they appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, before we do public input, I just want to remind everyone about the manner and decorum of our meetings and issue a warning in this regard. Meetings must be in an orderly and efficient manner. without willful disruption so that the business of the city can be conducted. While the council is more than willing to listen to comment from the public, it must be done at the appropriate time and should be done up at the podium with the microphone so that your words can be heard and recorded properly as part of the meeting. There cannot be interruption when council members are speaking or audience members calling names, chanting, or yelling out. If you do so, a warning will be issued to you, and if behavior continues, you might be asked to leave the chambers. If there's too much disruption from members in the audience, depending on severity, it may be necessary to call a recess, clear the chambers, or even cancel the meeting. I'd like to ask for your courtesy and cooperation in this regard, so it won't be necessary to take any of these steps. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move to public input. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Mayor Casey, we have one speaker for public comment, Monica Abonce.
Okay.
Good evening, Council. My name is Monica Abonce. I'm the recycling coordinator with San Benito County Integrated Waste Management. I wanted to come here this evening to formally invite you all to our annual Earth Day celebration. This year's event will be held in San Juan Bautista this Saturday at April 20th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the State Historic Park. This event is filled with a lot of fun for all ages. We will have over 20 interactive, environmentally friendly booths. We will be having vermicomposting class led by Master Gardener Otis Johnson. We will be also having a special performance from our local hula group Ha'ahula. And we will also be announcing the 15 winners of the Recology Art Poster Contest. So this is one of our favorite events of the year, and we really hope that you guys can make it. So thank you. And I've also brought some flyers.
Thank you.
Those are all the public comments we have for this portion of the agenda.
All right. Move on to consent. Do any members of the council have brief questions or comments on items from the consent agenda?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I can pull items A4 and A5 when it's appropriate.
4 and 5. Okay. Any other comments or quick questions? Nope.
Number 7.
Number 7. So 4, 5, and 7. All right. Can I get a motion then to approve the consent with the exception of items 4, 5, and 7?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did we have public comment, Jennifer?
I do not have any public comments for this item.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So that carried 5-0. All right, so we'll move to item 4, an ordinance number 1250, an ordinance of the city of Hollister amending the City of Hollister Municipal Code for the candidate statements, section 2.04.340. City Clerk, are you?
Sure, this is just the second reading of the ordinance that was introduced at the meeting on April 2nd, 2024, and this is part of the process that's required in order to adopt an ordinance.
Vice Mayor, you pulled this. Did you have a question?
No questions, a comment when it's appropriate.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this?
There are no public comments for this item.
Okay. All right, so any other, did you want to go ahead?
Yep, thank you so much. Again, I foresee some problems in waiving the fee for candidates to run for office. And I really think that if they're going to run for office, they should at least pay for the candidate statement fee. It's the biggest, most costly expense. And I think there has to be some buy-in from the community members that want to run for office. So I'm not going to support this evening. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or are we ready to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes. All those opposed?
No.
Okay, the motion carried 4-1. And we're going to move on to item 5, ordinance 1251, an ordinance of the city of Hollister amending section 2.04.050 of chapter 2.04 of title 2 of the Hollister Municipal Code. Again, City Clerk.
Again, it's the same thing. This is the second reading of the ordinance, which was introduced at the April 2nd, 2024 meeting, and this is the second step of the process in order to adopt an ordinance.
All right, did you have any questions?
No, I have
Okay.
a comment.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, public comment?
There are no public comments for this item.
All right, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to, again, pull it so that I can publicly vote no, and I have to pull it in order to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. Now we're moving on to item 7, resolution number 2024-46. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Hollister authorizing Councilmember Perez up to 8,500 of city council budgeted discretionary funds in financial support of Hollister Bulldog Boxing. So you pulled this item. Did you have a question or?
I did. I'm wondering if I can contribute 1,500 to make it an even 10,000, done administratively, if that was a possibility or if it had to come back.
Give me a moment, I'll check the policy.
Does anyone else have questions?
I have questions.
Yes.
Thank you. City Attorney, I've been informed that the children from this organization are out campaigning for certain candidates during campaign time. Us giving them this much money and then using the children out there to campaign for certain candidates, is that considered a bit of a conflict of interest, or what is your legal opinion on that?
So they shouldn't use the funds that are provided to them for that purpose. The funds should be used for the actual center, but individuals, there's no issue with individuals campaigning. for
Okay, is this center an
candidates.
actual 501c3?
Dave, do you have the answer to that?
They've provided documentation to our admin finance office as part of getting their business license that they have 501c3 status.
And are we tracking where the funds are being distributed?
We would create an agreement that would specify what the funds would be used for, and then we would audit that. Basically, we do that with the other items as well.
And have we done that with this organization in the past?
I am not aware. I understand that they were provided funding in the past. It was before my time, so I don't know the answer to that
But
question.
we're going to be
right now.
doing that moving forward. Okay, thank you.
I got a question.
Sure.
Question or comments now?
Pardon me?
Question or comments now?
How are we doing?
Where are we?
We're doing questions right now.
So have we done this with any other nonprofit 501(c)(3)? Are we singling out one? I'd hate for us to single out one specific nonprofit. So I just want to make sure that everything's fair across the board.
Yes, when we did the Dia de los Muertos with HDA, we actually did that the same way, where we went through and defined the deliverables, and that's how we've been doing it with the other items as well.
Good. Staff is always on it. I should have known that. The way it was said sounds very negative. So
We're also ensuring that any organization that we provide funds through this project process is a registered, if they're a nonprofit, actually registered in good standing, as well as have an active business license with the city.
good job. Thank you.
Did you have an answer on that or you?
Yeah, I don't see any legal issues with adding that amount. Anyone who's interested in this topic would have been here this evening for it.
Okay. So do we have any public comment on this item?
We have no public comment for this item.
Okay, so can I get a motion?
Moved.
Well, wait, do we need to make a
Oh.
statement as far as the additional amount?
Yeah, it would be a motion to approve with the additional funds from Councilmember Morales.
I make a motion to approve with additional funds from City Councilwoman Dolores Morales. District 2. 3.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries 5-0. And that brings us to, wow. Okay, so we're going to move on to council business. Our first item is discussing a discussion regarding local preference ordinance for affordable housing. City Attorney, do you have a report for us?
Yes, so this item, at the April 2nd, 2024 meeting, council directed that we return with this item to discuss creation of an ordinance related to local preference for affordable housing. Pursuant to Government Code 7061, the city has the discretion to go ahead and create or adopt a local preference ordinance. Local preference policy is a tool to prioritize applicants for affordable housing, displacement, housing insecurity, and address historical racial injustices. That's typically what they're used for. There are many cities and public agencies that have these policies in place already. For example, Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, Berkeley, National City. When I just did a quick search of them, we actually have drafts of local preference policies at our firm that we could use as a template, but I just need direction from council on if they want to proceed with this ordinance.
Yes.
Okay. So you're just looking for direction, not a vote tonight, so.
Correct,
Do we
just
have any-
direction, right? Yeah, and if anyone in the public has any comments. and-
Sure. Do we
get
have any
direction.
questions for the city attorney? No? Then let's, do we have public comment on this item?
We have no public comments for this item.
All right, so let's bring it back for discussion. Anyone have any further? Support it? No? Looks like we have, yes.
Just a quick question about time frame, ballpark within
Yes.
6 months, 3 months, a month.
Well, if I get direction to bring back an ordinance, we'll bring it back as quickly as possible, and then we do the introduction. The next meeting would be the adoption, and then you wait 30 days after for it to be effective.
In your legal research, have there been any ordinances that have been overturned or challenged?
No, not that I
Well,
found. There's not. Now, HCD does have requirements under this law that became effective January 2021. So it would require some staff time to implement the policy, the ordinance, and then to make the required reportings.
Thank you. That
during your
that
housing
completes my
element update.
questions.
got a
Appreciate your
question.
work. Thank you.
Yes, you had a follow-up.
Yeah, I gotta follow up with, so with, when he's talking timelines, when, after the 30-day process, the, is that effective on every single apartment, or does it have to be done for, it's citywide, correct?
Correct. And well, we recommend it be countywide since you're a majority of the city, but those are decisions you can make. So I'll bring back a draft ordinance. We can look at it, get input. I could even mail it, do a draft and email it out ahead of time so you could have some time to really think about it, and then get input.
Yeah, this is a very important topic for our community and our, one of our main needs. So yeah, I'd love to see staff working on this.
Correct. And there are limits within the law as well as to what can actually be in those policies. So we'll address those in the ordinance.
Anything that'll give our our residents a leg up will help.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, or are we ready to take, we have consensus, I think. I didn't see anybody shaking their head, so, all right. Then we can move on to item 2, discussion regarding campaign contribution and reporting ordinance. City Attorney, do you have a report?
Okay, let me switch gears here. So this item, council actually had a previous resolution that's in effect, resolution 2021-129, which requires that if you get $1, you need to report it. We actually have state law that has limits as well. Those current limits are adjusted every 2 years for inflation. So right now, the state law has a limit of 5,500. In looking at the laws associated with this and the frequently asked questions associated with it, you can always go more, or you can make it more restrictive. I don't know how you get more restrictive than $1, but anyway, just looking for guidance really on where the council wants to go with this item.
So quick question or clarification from you. So you mentioned that it's a $1 reporting and you said 5,500 for the state, but I think the state you have to report if it's over 100 or something like that, but or 99 and then 5,500 would be the max contribution.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Just wanted to
Thank
make
you
sure
for
I
that
understood
clarification.
it right. I thought that's what it meant. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Do we have any questions then for our city attorney?
I do, Madam Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So did we go back and look at the footage to see if this actually qualified for consensus to come back to the council?
Okay, yeah. So we went back and looked at footage
Yeah.
for a few years now, and
Okay.
it was all over the place. So in our opinion, in assessing this, I mean, prior to us coming on as your attorneys, there was a step where council discussed it. Then all of a sudden it came back. So there's a unique timeline associated with this item. So in our professional opinion, it could come back tonight for discussion and direction.
Who do you consider as the consensus to qualify it to bring it back tonight for reconsideration? Which council members, because we need 3 people to bring it back, right?
Yeah, I think that occurred at the last meeting, but I don't recall which 3 gave their thumbs up.
I was one.
Yeah. really.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering, because I
Okay.
remember when that happened. And I remember, yeah, like you said, it was kind of all over the place. So that's it. So
Mhm.
we've got Councilmember Morales, Mayor Mia Casey, and Rick Perez that asked to bring back the campaign contribution.
Councilman Perez, that is.
That's what they just said, yeah.
Okay.
I just don't have an independent recollection of that from a couple of weeks
Okay,
ago.
and then just to clarify, as the mayor stated, it was 4,900 and now it's gone up to 5,500.
So it's adjusted for inflation every other year at the state level. So currently that number is 5,500,
And that's going to take effect for this upcoming election.
2023, 2024. So yes.
Okay, if this council were to, let's say, just go back to only the state requirements, would that take place for this upcoming election?
Yeah, if we make the changes, it would be in time for this election.
Okay, and then you said that it could be more or less restrictive. So I'm confused about that. Are you talking about?
Yeah, so normally under California state law,
less
you
restrictive.
can't make things, you can't go above it, right? But I was looking at the frequently asked questions under this law, and I was surprised to actually see that you could make it greater than 5,500. I was
That's
kind
what I
of shocked
thought
at
you were
that.
saying.
Mhm.
That's weird.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was prepared to tell council you can't go more than 5,500. So I was researching it and then saw that and was like, that's interesting.
And is
So
there a limit to how much more you can go?
I didn't see a limit.
Gosh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
One other question. So the 99, reporting 99 on up or 100 on up, that number hasn't changed though, has it?
Not that I know of.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. If we don't have more questions, do we have public comment?
Mayor Casey, we have no public comments for this item.
All right, so let's bring it back and discuss it a little more. Did anyone want to? Councilmember Burns.
So if we were going to change this, currently, if somebody contributes $1 or more, we have mandatory reporting, if I understand things correctly. And so really what we're talking about would be changing it from somewhere between $1 and $99. Is that?
That's one component of it, but then also the max amount, I think you're at 250 right now, so you can go up to the,
Okay, so minimum and maximum.
correct.
Okay. So,
Did you?
thank you.
comment?
No, go ahead.
A comment?
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
So there, to me, obviously, I was on the council when we decided to implement this. And the reason why is there's laws that if you get anything more than $99, then you have to disclose who that donor is. So there's a process that some lobbyists do and developers do, which is called bundling checks. So you'll notice on some people's reporting, they get $99 checks, and it's because they think they can hide the money. And what they do is they get a bunch of $99 checks. So what I've heard is that developers will get checks from their subcontractors, and they will support certain candidates. And this is what I've heard from lobbyists. So anyhow, in order to just make things fair and transparent, we decided to adopt the policy that if you get $1 from anybody, then everybody in the city of Hollister knows who is contributing to your campaign. I think it's a fair policy. And then on top of that, we decided to limit the amount of money that you can get to only $250 per person. That is for a number of reasons. But basically, it's to level the playing field so that people like myself, a teacher who is self-funding his campaigns, can run for office as opposed to, I'm sorry? As opposed to somebody who's funded by developers or whose husband works for the industry of development and is supported by them to get into office that can now potentially get upwards of $1 million, I'm assuming, from this. And it's not uncommon to have. There is a process that some people have gone through where they create political action committees. It happens on the city level, on the state level, and on the federal level as well. And that's nothing that we can do about that. We looked into it. We did our due diligence. But for this majority of the council to bring this item back right before election time is very concerning to me, and it should be concerning to everybody that's watching as well. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I do. You know what, I remember this and my stance is still the same. It's, how does this level the playing field? That means the rich can fund as much as they want. Because you just loan yourself some money. And you know what? And the level playing field, so if you're a small businessman compared to someone that has a lot of money, I have to go out there and spend the time to go out there and get $99 checks. You know what? Personally, I think this whole thing should just be thrown away. We have a government agency called the FPPC. And, you know, why do we need to have our staff going through this? Am I running for election this year? I don't even know yet. But you know what? Things like what we just approved about the campaign statement, making it fair. How it's, I don't understand some of the thinking that goes up here. But you know, making it fair is making it for the everyday person can run for city council that cares about their community and can put input in on making our community better. Yeah, by these, I think there's too much interference of trying to make it hard for people to run. And one of it is all the extra paperwork, because let me tell you, grassroots myself, I did everything. It's very confusing, very time consuming. But you know what? I believe in the little man, the little guys that can make the big decisions for our community, and we're making them. So I say that we should get rid of this whole ordinance and just go back to the state.
Councilmember Morales, you have a comment?
Yes, yeah, I am very concerned that there's a lot of people not reporting what they're getting. We saw this last election cycle that some folks were sending out that are funding that report 250, but yet there's, you know, 3 to 4 mailers coming out of their campaigns at $5,000 to $6,000 a mailer. So if you do the math, that does not equal $250. And I think what lacks in this policy is the enforcement side. So, you know, our city clerk can't enforce this policy. And so we really need a state organization to be able to make sure that people abide by the law. So my recommendation, if we're doing comments, do we do public comments?
You can make recommendations, sure.
Is we had a lot of discussions throughout the year. So if we want to do 750 with the reporting requirements that the state can enforce, which is $99. I would be fine with that. If people want to increase it, fine, or if they want to decrease it, I think we need to just start having the conversation.
Councilmember Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Councilmember Morales brings up an interesting point that I've not actually taken the time to consider, but without purposely trying to put you under any stress, the city clerk, how would we, or how have we in the past actually enforced this? Or is this another situation of we're just going to trust people to do the right thing?
So I wasn't here for the election for 2022, so I'm not sure how previous city clerks enforce this. However, we don't have a mechanism for enforcing it in the current regulations in that resolution. So it is self-reporting. That is the requirement. When it comes to FPPC, you know, complaints can be made to them if they're the enforcement. But as a city clerk, we don't have a method for enforcing it for the city.
So would you have any, if we stayed the course on this, would you have a greater need for additional resources, or are we just going to continue down the path? And I don't know. I mean, it seems, I actually like the 99 or the, I'm sorry, $1 or more with a higher end cap.
Mhm.
But if the FPPC already has the authority, then it almost seems like it's a political thing here. And I have concerns because I, like Councilmember Perez, haven't decided whether I'm intending to run for reelection. But I would, if we were taking a vote, I would choose to tap out on this thing because I could see where it could be perceived as me having a vested interest in the outcome of this. And so,
So when it comes to enforcement, having not worked for the FPC nor having had to refer anyone for potentially enforcement to the FPPC. In my time, I'm not sure what they do. I'm sure they have all sorts of investigations that they're required to do. And we do not have those resources in the city clerk's office presently to be able to do
Thank
that.
you, thank you. So I once worked for a very wise city manager in another jurisdiction that used to say, don't create things you don't have the ability to enforce or the interest in enforcing. And I think that this was an unintended consequence of what past council did. And so I have some real reservations about taking a political stance on something we apparently have no ability to enforce. And I think we just get rid of it and go back to the FPPC, because they're the people that are going to do the enforcement anyway. And they set their own rules. We can't set them for them. And so for me, it would just make sense to remove this from the ordinance completely and direct staff to just, make it go away. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I know we've already had comments, but I do have an instance where I could probably help shed some light on Councilmember Tim Burns' question.
Okay.
Thank you. Last election cycle, there was a candidate who went over. And then in that case, do you remember what we did? I think we referred them to the DA and to the FPPC when they were, in particular, when they were doing the recount. Were you involved in that? Okay, so my understanding, Councilmember Burns, is that we would then send them a letter. And Ms. Woodworth, were you not involved in that?
No, I was not involved in referring them to the FPPC.
Okay, so we would send them a letter, is my understanding, refer it to the district attorney, refer them to FPPC, and then send the candidate a letter. So that's what I recall happened last time. Thank you.
Okay, other comments? Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I lost, what, this happened when? During this last election? I'm totally clueless right now. I'm
Yeah.
trying to get some.
So, okay, so we have a cap of $250, right? So there was a candidate who requested a recount and they went over the cap. They also paid cash, which you cannot take more than, I think, $99 in cash. So they broke a number of violations. And my understanding was that the city clerk and the city manager at the time issued a letter to the candidate, a letter to the district attorney, and a letter to FPPC in accordance with the law.
Yeah, and we can look into it. At that time, that was before Jennifer was here with the city. That was before I was in my role, but I'm familiar with what you're referring to. We just weren't in those roles at the
Yeah,
time.
I was here during the recount. However, the city clerk's office was not involved in that process of referring him at all. That's all I can speak to on it.
My apologies, Jennifer. I was off.
Councilmember Burns.
So Vice Mayor, what I heard you say though was ultimately it got referred to FPPC regardless. And so to me, it just seems like a more streamlined process to just go directly there. And my sense is, as I understand it, anybody can make a complaint about any elected official, the FPPC. We don't need the city attorney, the city manager, the city clerk to do that. And it will still be investigated based on what their requirements are. And so, again, I'm troubled to think that we have something that we've either chosen not to enforce or put a component in for enforcement. And in some cases, then I also worry that it could be conceived as retaliatory. And so I just think we need to get out of that business, in my opinion. And I thank you for giving me some background because I wasn't aware. Thank you.
I agree with Councilman Burns also, because it seems like we're mixing two departments here together. Keeping them separate is good. Thank you.
Anything further? I don't have a lot to add to that. I mean, you guys have covered it pretty well. I do think that the limit was set artificially low, and I can tell you, as running my first campaign, that campaigns are extremely expensive, especially if you have to run a citywide campaign. So when you set the level that low, you're spending a lot of time out there trying to just gather little donations. So it makes it difficult for anybody who doesn't have a lot of spare cash on hand. I was able to contribute $3,500 to my campaign, but it was still a heavy lift to get the rest of the expenses covered. So I feel like for people who don't have funding, it does create some unevenness, especially when you look at candidates who are on the wealthier side, who fund their entire campaign. They have an advantage over when you set this bar so low. So I think it is a problem. And I would just agree with the bureaucracy that was created here. And I remember some of the conversations when the first ordinance was put in place, and then they attempted to do some emergency ordinance after that to put more teeth in it and have hearings and attorneys involved, and that went down in flames. So I know we've had a lot of discussion back and forth, going back a year or more on this. And I do remember people being concerned that especially the $1 contribution, it's like that it could be turned into a witch hunt. And we have seen a little bit of that going on this year. So I would be in favor of just getting rid of it. I know the county doesn't do any separate kind of reporting, and they just leave it to the FPPC. So I would be in favor of that as well.
So if you repeal what's currently in existence, by default, the city would just be subject to Assembly Bill 571 with the limits that are in place by the state.
So how do we make a motion?
I just need direction, and then we'll bring it back for a motion.
Okay.
Yes, that's a yes
Yeah,
from me.
be fine with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, wow. So we're already to informational reports, and it's only 7:10.
Is this a record?
Maybe. All right, so any committee reports? Councilmember Burns, do you have anything?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Anything to report?
No, we
Councilmember
will have a
Howard?
special fire district meeting Thursday.
Yes.
I remembered.
Councilmember Morales.
Yes, so we had a really nice session with Mobility Partnership. And I'm happy to report that the meeting location will be held for all the future meetings for the rest of the year will be held in Hollister. So we will have our colleagues from Morgan Hill and Gilroy join us somewhere in Hollister. We are, there's going to be some interesting work being done, the overpass of 25 and 101. There's going to be a lot of delays. So we are talking about how to do community outreach to inform our community about when and how and potential detours. There's going to be an effort to look at the areas in which people live, where they commute to where they work, and working with our community stakeholders to make sure that there's a lot of information that goes out. So a mobility partnership will be doing a special toolkit for us, and we'll just have more information as it becomes available. But we are very excited that they're coming here so they can experience what we experience, which is the roundabout, the overpass, and just the beautiful scenery, and of course the traffic. For AMBAG, we talked about there's several cuts that are happening. And so we will be asked to do letters of support. And so when they come to me, I will bring it back to council for a review and approval of such support letters. So this is just to maintain our transportation. Lively, they're also doing public hearings on transportation. And so as we get those reports, we'll make sure I'll give them to our city manager so they can post online. And then lastly, we had CalCog, where we had a very short orientation. CalCog is the State Council of Governments, and they do a lot of legislative work and can help us in a lot of different ways. And we are going to fully take advantage of that in some of our housing numbers and any and all areas that we could benefit from them. That is all.
I was actually on that meeting as well, and it was exciting to hear what CalCog is doing, and also that they can provide some support to especially rural counties like ours. And so we do have plans to be calling them up. They gave us our phone numbers. It might be a mistake, but we'll be pursuing some things with them, especially talking to them about our arena numbers and, you know, any potential help we can get from them regarding it. Councilmember Perez mentioned the Fire Protection Advisory Committee. We are having a meeting Thursday, but we did have one last week, and We got a really great overview report from our interim chief Dover, that it gave a lot of historical data about the numbers of calls, where they originated, staffing and financial data. It was, for me anyways, it was extremely valuable. So I'm hoping we'll be seeing that report out here at council, because I think you'd all enjoy it, and it really helps to understand how they operate. So thank you for that. And also the committee, the fire district committee, or I'm sorry, the fire district discussion. There is a report that's to be prepared and with recommendations, but there's more time that's needed. So and an extension of the grant is being put in so that we can continue working on fire district. And the only other committee, and this will be a little long, so I'm sorry. The Animal Ad Hoc Committee met last week, and we had some recommendations to bring forward. So I just wanted to share those with you. We had an in-depth discussion. Officer Bautista and I shared our research on what other cities and counties have been doing around permits and licensing. The chief had previously suggested a self-registry for the animal shelter. And he also had suggested maybe the rescue groups could create a local nonprofit body that would self-regulate all the rescues, but the group declined this idea because, you know, they have enough trouble just trying to run their own nonprofit, and they didn't really have the bandwidth to create an overarching nonprofit. So we had the discussion around permits and licensing, but the consensus that came from both the rescue groups and the animal control staff was that it's creating a lot of extra bureaucracy, and it would burden and, you know, it would cost the rescues additional permit fees or licensing fees, because the majority of these groups, they operate on a shoestring and they rely on donations to help offset a lot of their costs, which mostly come out of their own pockets. Most of these rescues are a labor of love, and they're usually operated from their homes. They also stated that, you know, one bad actor in their illegal action shouldn't really punish all the rest of the rescues that are doing really good work and operating in good faith and benefiting our community. And so I had been leaning towards permits myself, but after listening to them, my perspective changed. In particular, what stuck with me was that one of the more experienced officers had to say about the situation and about the idea of doing permits or licensing or a registry. He said that basically, as much as we want to keep this from ever happening again, it will. And he said, even if we add licensing or permits, he said, this kind of thing happens. And it happens not just with rescues, but it happens in just homes where there is no rescue organization. And one of the issues is that when you talk about going onto someone's private property, the Fourth Amendment comes into play, and that you have to have probable cause. Even if someone is cooperating with you and lets you come in and inspect an area where animals are kept, it doesn't give you the right to go around their house and look in their kitchen or their bedrooms. A search warrant is required for things like that, and you have to have evidence, and you have to get before a judge and get a sign off. So, so that was kind of it was kind of eye-opening for me that even if we were to add all these extra licenses or permits, it isn't going to necessarily stop this from happening. The animal control staff also talked about the additional workload of managing yet another permitting process. What the overwhelming majority of the group and the staff was in support of was the self-registry process that the chief had mentioned, working in conjunction with the animal shelter to identify their rescues, provide information, and allow for inspection. There was also a discussion of maybe some kind of reciprocal benefit that's offered to registered rescues, such as sharing of resources or supplies by the animal shelter. There were a couple of other suggestions or recommendations for improvement. One was for animal control to have a better record of all calls or reports that come in. It was shared that if an officer takes a call but feels like this is secondhand or not verifiable, it might not get included in the log. Because there were some reports from people who had said they had called in about this rescue, but there wasn't a record of it in the log. So we're suggesting that it be recorded even if it's not considered verifiable, so that there's a record, a complete record. Another recommendation was to work with the county regarding updating their animal ordinances, because they don't have the same kind of restrictions, especially on the number of animals allowed. And as noted, this house was located in a county pocket within the city, so the different laws applied to them. So those are the recommendations from the ad hoc committee. I know council will want to discuss this further, but we'll need to agendize it for a future meeting. I've given David those recommendations, so I'm sure he'll prepare something and then we can have more discussion on it. And also we can invite animal control staff and even some of the rescues in if they want to participate and give comment. And that's what I have. All right, so council reports. Vice Mayor, do you have a report?
I don't, but I have a question about your animal report. So I'm just wondering, are you asking us to agendize that now, or are you going to bring it back at a later date?
The hope is to get consensus from council to bring this item back so we can
Okay.
have a full discussion.
Okay,
'Cause
perfect.
I'm
Yeah.
sure everyone wants to contribute and talk
Okay,
about it.
wonderful. I definitely would support that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any report? Councilmember Burns?
Just a follow-up request. I know it's been a while since we've heard anything about the effort to create a communication center. And so I'd like to get a status update on that in the next month or so, if it's feasible to do so, please. And that will conclude my report. Thank you, ma'am.
Councilmember Morales, do you have a report for us? Hmm?
I do have a couple of, so I would like, council to consider proclaiming May 5th as the National Day for missing and murdered Indigenous women, May 5th. That's also a day where, the community wears red. I'd like to, contribute out of my discretionary funds, $2,000 for an event on May the 4th, for our region for murdered and missing Indigenous women. I think it's the second of the year, so it's to bring awareness, and there's, I think it will be it's good for us to raise that issue. I also, would like to ask our city manager, city attorney, I am looking to look at how do we build, safer communities, and I'm looking at it from a three-part section, which is how do we, engage our youth in safe activities, either through Parks and Recs or other things. I'm looking to visit Soledad. They have apparently a really good program. I'm also looking potentially to fund an organization called New Hope for Youth. They work with super high risk youth and young adults. They also provide services to victims that were involved in shooting. So if they got shot or their family members were part of something that was a severe violent crime, they work with victims. And the third area is substance abuse. This is still an issue in our community. So my balance after the $2,000 is $35,500. I'm looking to see what process to what is the administrative process or process that would fall within the guidelines of the city to potentially split the remainder of my discretionary funds to those three organizations. For Parks and Recs to potentially pay for fees, whether it's basketball or activities related to just making sure that youth are involved in positive, engaging activities. That is all. Thank you.
Councilmember Perez?
I see all the traffic and stuff that's going on in our highways and byways and stuff. It sounded good. Huh? Anyways, the the county's been building on the bridges in the back roads over here, Hospital Road, all these other roads. We're getting our turbo roundabout, we're dialing that in. But one thing we haven't looked at, and it's going to be a major artery clog, 4th Street or San Juan Bridge, the bridge going to San Juan. I don't even know what it's called. And I've talked to staff about this before, but I did want the community to know, and the rest of the my colleagues, that it's something I think we should be looking out for the future. Nothing quick to build a bridge, to widen our bridge. I don't know if you've driven over that bridge. It's not safe for anybody driving across or walking across. I know there's other ideas coming for walks and all these things, but eventually with everything opening up to 2 lanes, we're going to have to widen that bridge and have a walkway for it. And so I just thinking, I don't know which committees would be involved with that or how we get that ball rolling. But if it's going to take us 20 years, Let's start now. Let's not wait for another 20 years. Let's not end up with 25 again. Let's think ahead. So I don't know. If that's an asking my colleagues to support this or to see what we can do. But that's all I have.
Okay. And the only thing I have is, I wanted to request a proclamation for the 90th annual saddle and horse show. There you
Saddle
go.
horse.
Long name. If we could get consensus to do that in the next meeting. That's it. City Manager, did you have a report?
Nothing to report, but let me run back the items that I heard this evening. Just making a quick note. So we received a request to bring back the communication center dispatch, I'm assuming, in the next month or so. Have Chief Reynoso provide an update. So. And then for a proclamation for May 5th. For May 4th, the Indigenous Awareness event, I didn't hear who the organization that we would be providing support to. Yes. Because it'll be in the agenda. So when it comes back, all of that will be included for vote. And then a request to work with Councilmember Morales on a Safer Communities initiative. Take a look at Soledad and what they're doing there. Provide support for New Hope for Youth, which provides victim support and substance abuse support. And then work as well on the Park and Recs fees to put a program together using the balance of your discretionary funds.
Madam Mayor, can I get some clarification on that?
Sure, go ahead.
What do you mean by work with Councilmember Morales? Like, are you going to create an ad hoc or what does that look like?
No, it would be
confused.
to put a agenda item together
Okay,
with
yeah.
more information,
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
because it would all come back to vote. So. Councilmember Perez asked about exploring options for the San Juan 4th Street Bridge. It'd be something we'd have to work in partnership with the county as well.
Yeah.
Aren't there already reports on that? It seems to me that there's a lot of data already.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do some digging on that. I
Okay.
don't have it all at my fingertips, but we can look into what's
But we
been
can
provided
start.
already and
We can
provide a
push.
report back.
Thank you.
And then the proclamation for the saddle horse show. And that's all.
Do we have any other staff reports?
Making May the is it indigenous.
Yeah, we got that
Okay,
one.
got it, thanks.
So there were no other staff.
No, nothing to
Reports.
report today.
And I guess that's it. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? 5-0 passes.